Hello everyone. Today we are going to start with lecture 4. It's a reading comprehension lecture. It talks about a new theme, which is exploration and adventure. So we are going to start with the comprehension skill, which is chronological order, and then we will move to the vocabulary words, and after that to the reading lesson, to the text, to the selection. Let's first start with the title of our theme. So the title of our theme is Exploration and Adventure. This is Unit 2, and we are going to talk about many explorations and adventures that happened around the world. First of all, we are going to start with chronological order with this skill. This skill means when I say chronological order, it means I mean time order or events put in order. I mean from the beginning to the middle to the end. So when I say chronological order, this means time order, when the writer organizes the events in the story or the steps in a process in order in which that occur. So when I want to start writing a story, I have to start the events from the beginning, I move to the middle and then to the end. Same as what we do when we are writing about steps in a process. We start with the steps from the beginning to the end. This is what do we mean by chronological order. This sequence of events help readers understand the story. When you read a story which is written in chronological order from the beginning to the end, it means you will understand the story more and you will have more chance to understand it than any other stories which are not written in chronological order. In this kind of orders, we use some transitional signals or transitions such as first, next, then, after that, finally, after a while, afterward, again, also, and then, as long as, at last, at that time, eventually, further, furthermore, in the first place, lately, meanwhile, moreover, now, since, soon, until, and we use something very important, which is the years. Like I say in 1948, in 1950, in 1954, and so on. So these years also are used especially in biographies. Let's start together solving this exercise. We have to read this paragraph and then we have to write events in the correct order. Soccer is a game that has been played for numerous years. In fact, many people believe that it began over 800 years. About 200 years ago, in the early 1800s, so in the 1800s, boys and girls in England played a sport like soccer. So this is the first event, or this is what happened in the 1800s, called football. However, each school made up their own rules. In 1863, a group of players met and wrote official rules for soccer. So the rules for soccer were put in 1863. A group of players met and wrote official rules for soccer. Soccer started spreading in other countries. In 1904, and this is the third event, an international group called FIFA formed to make sure that every team around the world followed the same soccer rules. Today, soccer is one of the most popular sports in the world. Let's now move to the exercise. This exercise this chart is called a flow chart. In this chart, you have to write what happened in the 1800s. We said that in the 1800s, football was invented and a group of boys and girls in England were playing football. In 1863, some people or a group of people started setting rules for football. In 1904, football became a popular game. In 2020 or nowadays or in this period of time, what happened? Football is a popular game which is played all around the world. So we just fill in the flow chart with the events that happen in each year. Now let's start with the vocabulary words. We have 10 vocab words. We are going to explain them now. Let's start with the first word, evocative. What do I mean by evocative? This is the word. Making people remember something by producing a feeling and or memory in them. It means, for example, I ask you to smell a certain perfume and I ask you, what does this perfume remind you of? Or I ask you to read a book or a certain story or a certain quote, and I ask you, what does this quote remind you with? So this is what do I mean by evocative. Phenomenal means something very great, very weird, extraordinary, and so on. Tangible means clear enough to be easily seen or noticed, something that is very clear to be seen. Dock. When I say dock, it means I'm joining something or joining two things together, to join something. Palisades are fences or stakes forming defense barriers. It means it's a fence. Palisades are like a fence, borders. Bigwigs, this is a slang word. I just put this between brackets for you to know. It means very important people. Rigorous means very strict. For example, the rules at our school are rigorous. It means they are very strict rules. Cramming is to pack tight. So when I cram my bag, it means I packed it tight. Claustrophobic is a person with an extreme or irrational fear of confined spaces, of narrow spaces, of closed places like elevators, like for example closed rooms and so on. This is a claustrophobic person. Nomadic means moving from one place to another rather than living in one place. So a person who travels from one place to another and doesn't live in the same place is a nomadic person. Let's start now with the reading lesson. I will read the text and explain it. Let's start with the title. The title is First Space Tourist. It means the first time or the first person who went on space for tourism. Let's start. Paragraph 1. Star City, Russia, on April 28. The world will witness once again another of those spaceships taking off to outer space. This time it is the Russian Soyuz TM-34 with a definite mission to dock with the ISS, International Space Station, and return to Earth within 10 days. As usual, there will be astronauts, but this time there is going to be a tourist on board. So usually tourists go to space. This time a normal person is going to space as a tourist. Paragraph 2. For years, people have talked of traveling to space as tourists, but it has only been talk until now. Dennis Tito is going to be the first tourist and non-professional astronaut to ever go to outer space. The fit 60-year-old California has just left his 30,000 square foot Pacific Palisades mansion for 2 rooms in the Star City Cosmonaut Training Center in Russia to prepare for the launch. So they prepared for the launch for this touristic trip. Let's see what happens next. Now, paragraph 3. During the same time, Tito worked for NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, as a rocket scientist charting paths for the flights to Mars and Venus. He once called the space agency to get information on becoming an astronaut, but it never went beyond that single phone call. Eventually, he put that dream on hold and changed course. He quit his job and gave himself up to investment business. He made his first million before he became 40. So this man is a very rich man. His firm Wilshire Associate is a powerhouse that manages more than $10 billion in assets. Nonetheless, his old dream has not vanished throughout all these years. It has been dormant until he got a call from Mirprop executives who were trying to raise money to keep the space station Mir going. A few months later, Mircrop's bigwigs went to his Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles. Within a 15-minute meeting, a deal was clinched and Tito got the first 20 million ticket to space. $20 million. So uh, he paid $20 million to go to space for his trip. Tito does not agree on what some people believe that he is a billionaire who wants to use some of his wealth to fulfill one of his greatest dreams. He insists. What does he say? He says, I'm not just a wealthy guy. Wealthy means very rich, who's looking for kicks. All I'm after is making my life more fulfilling. I think it is because of the love of adventure, the need to accomplish something of value, and the quest for knowledge. So he wants to make a certain adventure. My money has bought me everything I want, but my biggest dream is to go up in a space shuttle. He added with a smile of satisfaction. I could just see myself lying on my deathbed at 90 saying, yeah, what an active life, you did it all. So he wanted to have an active life and he wanted to fulfill every dream he has. And one of his dreams was going to space. Recalling the deal at his sits Ahmed Woods, more than an hour's drive from Moscow, Tito says, I still need a few systems training and up we go. His willingness to undergo months of rigorous training shows his serious intentions. It means it's not easy to go to space. You have to train. So he trained for months and months in order to go to space. Furthermore, since the lead astronauts and ground crew on the mission are Russians, Tito had to learn Russian to communicate with them. So he also learned Russian and also in order to communicate with the astronauts that are training him. See, he says, not only am going to outer space, but also I have learned a new language, and he was proud of himself. Paragraph 7. Along with the Russian lessons, Tito has been taking classes on the mechanics of the space shuttle. Day after day at Star City, morning until evening is spent cramming. Besides class work about manned space flights, Tito has endured 8 times the force of Earth's gravity. Part of his preparation is the need to make sure he remains healthy. He is already a quarantine, not allowed to have physical contact with the outside world until takeoff, until they go to the trip. He has been in a climate and air controlled room in order to simulate conditions similar to those in outer space. They have to ensure that he is not claustrophobic and that he can still exercise, eat, and sleep in the pressurized cabin. Paragraph 8. All the astronauts have been eating the same kinds of pre-packaged food that they brought with them to outer space. They also have to drink a great deal of water to keep themselves hydrated. I'm sure that nobody on board would risk the safety and success of this mission, says Soyuz Commander Talagat Mosabayev. All of us on board have to be physically, mentally, and emotionally stable because once we get up there to space, there is no getting off until the 10-day tough work comes to an end. Paragraph 9. So what they are trying to say in paragraph 8 is that you cannot go back even if you felt that you are afraid or scared until you finish the 10 days in space. Paragraph 9, and this is after launching the ship. The launch went very smoothly. That's what Musabayev said in one of his reports to the ground station. The docking was a little harder than expected, but it did not cause any problems to the spacecraft, nor to the station. And of course, not to our special passenger, he added. There were some problems caused by Tito's adaptation to the weightlessness, but the moment he started to take the photos, he developed countermeasures against motion sickness. But the way he used so far 25 of the 40 rolls of camera film he brought for his trip, continued Musabayev. When the ground crew asked to hear Tito's voice, his first message was "Horosho." This is a Russian word, and he said it with zest.